The air inside Geneva's Global Innovation Hall felt charged. Cameras rolled. Leaders from every corner of the world gathered under one roof. Entrepreneurs, presidents, scientists, military leaders. Yet the world wasn't ready for what was about to unfold. On stage, the moderator introduced the final panel. Africa's place in the future of global innovation. Sitting at the end of the row was Captain Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso. Calm, composed, listening. Beside him sat tech titan Elon Musk, fidgeting, clearly agitated. No one expected Elon to speak during this segment, but he did. Standing up mid-panel, he grabbed the mic without invitation. "I'm sorry," Elon began, voice sharp, "but I can't sit here and pretend. We have a military man posing as a visionary. Let's stop romanticizing revolutions that lead nowhere." He turned slightly toward Traoré. "You, sir, are a fraud in uniform, and you're misleading millions of African youth." The hall fell dead silent. Traoré didn't move, didn't blink, just stared, unshaken. The moderator whispered, "Should we cut to break?" The producer shook his head. Cameras zoomed in. The world was watching, and it had just begun. People shifted in their seats. A woman in the front row covered her mouth in disbelief. The weight of Elon's insult pressed on every soul in the room. Even seasoned journalists froze. Fraud in uniform. The words echoed across the summit like a gunshot in a church. Traoré sat perfectly still, his brown hands folded, eyes calm but sharp, like a soldier measuring wind before firing a single shot. No one knew what he was thinking. Meanwhile, Elon leaned back in his chair, smugly sipping water as if he'd just exposed a con man. Social media lit up. Elon vs. Traoré. Fraud or freedom, Bart Africa speaks. Soon, some African delegates looked away in shame. Others were visibly angry but unsure how to respond. The moment was historic but horrifying. And still, Traoré didn't speak. The moderator tried to move on. "Let's pivot back to innovation in agriculture." But before she could finish, Traoré slowly rose from his chair. You could hear the creak of the wood. The hush in the room was absolute. He didn't look at the moderator. He didn't look at Elon. He looked directly into the camera. And then, he walked to the microphone. Captain Traoré stood before the mic like a statue of dignity, calm, grounded, and without a trace of emotion. He waited for the whispers to die down. Then, without raising his voice, he said one sentence. "A man who doesn't know what it means to fight for clean water cannot lecture those who've bled for it." A silence thicker than thunder fell over the room. Elon blinked. A few gasps came from the crowd, raw, real, human. Behind Traoré, the massive screen flashed through images of Burkina Faso, dusty villages where young girls walked miles for water, schools rebuilt from war rubble, farmers irrigating dry land with borrowed hope. His sentence didn't need a second line. It was the kind of truth that doesn't need shouting, the kind that punches you in the soul. A reporter in the back quietly wiped her eyes. Another man lowered his camera, too moved to film. Even Musk looked lost for a moment. Traoré didn't linger. He stepped back from the mic and returned to his seat. Still no emotion, still no anger, just truth. And in that moment, something shifted, not just in the room, but in the world. The camera cut briefly to a flashback montage, images pulled from a documentary few had ever seen. Young Ibrahim Traoré, just 13 years old, sitting beside his mother in a clay house with no electricity. In a small interview clip, a boyish Traoré whispered, "I don't want to lead. I just want to protect my people." The world watching the summit had no idea what this man had seen. He had grown up watching women give birth on dirt floors. He had once walked 5 miles just to help his neighbor carry water. He didn't grow up in a palace. He grew up dodging bullets when his village was attacked. He grew up burying friends who had never owned shoes. So when Elon Musk called him a fraud, it wasn't just an insult, it was erasure. An erasure of pain, of truth, of Africa's quiet heroes. Now, sitting back in his chair after delivering that one powerful sentence, Traoré wasn't trying to win applause. He was remembering the boy who once said, "We deserve better." And that boy had grown up to wear a uniform, not for power, but for purpose. Back on stage, Elon Musk leaned forward. His smirk was gone. His fingers tightened around his water bottle. He had never been publicly silenced like that, not even on Twitter. Behind him, a large screen quietly displayed statistics. 64% of Burkina Faso's population under age 25. Over 3 million displaced by terrorism. And yet, Burkina Faso had just finished building its first 100% African-funded solar plant. Elon turned his head slightly, his eyes finally resting on Traoré, not with contempt this time, but with confusion. The moderator, clearly shaken, tried to regain control. "Captain Traoré," she asked softly, "why didn't you respond with anger?" Traoré looked at her with steady eyes. "Because I wasn't insulted. Africa was." Gasps again. Then silence. He continued, "I've seen death. I've seen mothers crying because their sons couldn't afford medicine. I've seen children eating once every 3 days. So if you think words can break me, you don't know what we've survived." In that moment, it wasn't just the room that went quiet. It was the world. Someone in the audience uploaded the clip to social media before the summit had even ended. Within 30 minutes, the video had 10 million views. Within 2 hours, it had crossed 50 million. People from every corner of the world were now watching Traoré's one-sentence answer, on loop. Young Africans were recording reaction videos, crying. Elderly women from Mali to Mozambique were praying on live stream, hands trembling. But the twist came when a video surfaced, footage from 2 years ago. In it, Traoré is seen kneeling beside a crying child in a destroyed school. The boy had lost his parents to a terrorist raid. Everyone else had run. Traoré stayed. He took off his uniform jacket, wrapped the boy in it, and said, "I promise one day, your tears will be my reason to never give up." That same boy, now older, stitched himself into the viral video and whispered, he kept his promise. Millions broke down. Even Elon's followers started turning. The world wasn't just watching anymore. They were feeling, they were crying, and they were beginning to understand who Ibrahim Traoré really was. The cameras captured every detail, Traoré's steady gaze, the calm in his posture. But inside, the weight was crushing. Leading a country like Burkina Faso was no easy task. Every morning brought news of violence, hunger, and loss. Every decision meant choosing between hard truths and hope. Traoré had not chosen this life for glory. He had chosen it because no one else could. In his mind, he saw faces. The mother who lost her son to a bombing, the girl who walked barefoot for miles to fetch water, the elderly man who survived decades of war and still believed in peace. He carried their pain like a silent river beneath his calm surface. Now Elon Musk's words, "fraud in uniform," felt like a cold storm. But Traoré knew something the world didn't. Strength was not in loud words, but in quiet sacrifice. As he sat back down, the entire hall held their breath. What would come next? For what felt like hours, no one spoke. No one moved. Traoré's simple, quiet sentence had shattered the tension and changed the game. Reporters whispered into their microphones, their voices trembling. Viewers at home paused their phones and TVs, stunned into silence. In that moment, the summit was no longer about innovation or technology. It was about truth, and about the cost of leadership few understood. Elon Musk's face flickered from smug to shocked, then thoughtful. Traoré looked at him, not with anger, but with the calm confidence of a man who had faced storms far worse. The cameras captured the subtle shift, the quiet power of dignity over insult. And millions of people, from young students to world leaders, began to rethink everything they thought they knew about Africa and about Traoré. Days before the summit, Traoré received a letter from a little girl in his hometown. It was simple and heartfelt. "Dear Captain, I don't understand why the world listens to some people and not to us. I hope you speak for us. Please help us have a better future." He kept the letter in his pocket during the entire summit. When Elon spoke, Traoré thought about that letter. He thought about the promises he made, not for himself, but for every child waiting for peace. His one sentence wasn't just a response to insult. It was a promise that he would keep fighting for the children, the mothers, the forgotten. The summit wasn't just about words. It was about hope. And for the first time in a long time, hope felt real. Behind the calm exterior of Captain Ibrahim Traoré was a man carrying the heavy weight of his country's future. He wasn't just a leader in uniform. He was the last hope for millions who had suffered through violence, poverty, and broken promises. Every decision he made had consequences. Every moment away from his people felt like a betrayal. The night before the summit, Traoré sat alone in his hotel room, staring at a worn photograph of his village, a place scarred by conflict but filled with resilient smiles. He thought about the mothers who waited for him to bring change, the children who dreamed of a better tomorrow. His phone buzzed with messages from young activists asking if he was ready. He wasn't just fighting for headlines or power. He was fighting to keep a promise to protect his people from despair. When Elon Musk called him a fraud, Traoré didn't hear just an insult. He heard doubt cast on every sacrifice made by his people, and he knew the only way forward was with calm strength and undeniable truth. When Traoré rose to speak, the room held its breath. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "A man who doesn't know what it means to fight for clean water cannot lecture those who've bled for it." That one sentence changed everything. It was a quiet blow to years of misunderstanding, a shield for the forgotten. It carried the weight of drought-stricken lands, the pain of families torn apart, and the hope of future generations. The summit was no longer a platform for wealth or fame. It was a stage for truth. People around the world watched Traoré's words replayed in endless loops. Young Africans saw themselves in his calm defiance. Elders felt pride swelling in their hearts. Even skeptics paused to listen. In that moment, Traoré wasn't just a leader in uniform. He was the voice of a continent demanding respect. In the days following the summit, the world started to see Captain Ibrahim Traoré differently. News outlets flooded with stories about the man behind the uniform. Reports surfaced about how Traoré had risked his life to protect civilians during attacks, how he had walked through villages rebuilding schools with his own hands, how, despite limited resources, he pushed for clean water projects and education reforms. Social media was awash with messages of support and admiration. Young people shared videos thanking him for speaking up. Families sent letters telling stories of hope sparked by his leadership. Even Elon Musk's followers began to question their assumptions. A quiet revolution was happening, not with guns, but with respect and understanding. Traoré's one sentence wasn't just words. It was the spark that lit a fire of empathy and change, and the world was only just beginning to listen. Days after the summit, a small package arrived at Traoré's office. It was a collection of letters from his people. Simple notes, drawings, and prayers. One letter was from a mother in a dusty village far from the capital. She wrote, "Captain, my children sleep safely tonight because you stand in their defense. You are not a fraud. You are a shield." Another letter came from a teenager who had just finished school. Thank you for giving me hope to dream again. We believe in you." Traoré read every letter carefully. He kept them close, a quiet reminder of why his fight mattered. His leadership wasn't about headlines or power. It was about the faces behind those words. The children, mothers and elders who needed someone to stand tall when everything else seemed to fall apart. His heart was heavy with their pain, but filled with their hope. Every letter was a call to keep going, a call he could never ignore. Across the globe, the summit's moment became a turning point. News channels debated Traoré's one sentence. Opinion pieces flooded newspapers. Young Africans started protests, not violent but peaceful, demanding respect and recognition for their leaders who truly fought for change. In Europe, students held vigils. In the Americas, activists shared stories of African resilience. Even business leaders reached out, wanting to support sustainable projects in Burkina Faso. Social media was ablaze with hashtags praising Traoré's courage. For many, he became a symbol of dignity in the face of dismissal. In Burkina Faso, streets filled with people chanting his name, not as a soldier or president, but as a guardian of their dreams. Traoré's calm strength had turned insult into inspiration, and the world was beginning to see what Africa had always known. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, Traoré's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. The voice on the other end was calm but sincere. It was Elon Musk. "I've been thinking about what you said," Elon admitted. "I was wrong to judge without understanding." Traoré listened quietly as Elon spoke about the need to learn more, to listen better. The call was short, but it marked a beginning, a bridge across misunderstanding. For Traoré, it was a reminder that real change starts with dialogue, even between the fiercest critics. And for the world watching, it was proof that even the greatest divides could be crossed by humility and truth. In the days that followed the summit, something unexpected happened. Traoré found himself alone in his office late at night, the hum of the city fading outside. He wasn't thinking about speeches or headlines. He was thinking about the future. A future he didn't want to just survive, but one he wanted to build. The weight of expectation pressed on his shoulders like never before. But beneath it all was a quiet fire. A determination born from every tear, every loss, every hopeful face he had ever met. That fire would not die. He knew the world was watching. And now, more than ever, he needed to be the leader his people deserved. Not just with words, but with action. The silence was temporary, because storms don't last forever. And when they break, they can bring new life. Captain Traoré wasted no time. He launched programs to bring clean water to villages that had never known it. He pushed education for girls, knowing they were the key to breaking cycles of poverty. He worked tirelessly with farmers to build sustainable farms, even when resources were scarce. Every small victory was a step toward healing a broken nation. International leaders took notice. Donations came in, not just money, but partnerships grounded in respect. And through it all, Traoré never forgot the power of humility. He traveled to the villages himself, listening to the stories, sharing in the pain and hope. The man Elon Musk had called a fraud was proving the world wrong every single day. Not with arrogance, but with heart. Months later, the world saw a different Ibrahim Traoré. Not just a soldier or president, but a symbol of courage and resilience. When Elon Musk visited Burkina Faso, he witnessed firsthand the changes Traoré had made. There were smiles where once there was fear. Children running freely, schools rebuilt, fields green with crops. Musk quietly admitted, "I was wrong. This man is a true leader." Traoré smiled softly, eyes reflecting the journey. His one sentence at the summit had been more than words. It was a promise. A promise kept through every challenge, every sleepless night, every tear. And to the millions watching, his story was a reminder. True leadership is measured not by power, but by love. If this story touched your heart and made you believe in hope and courage, please like this video, subscribe for more real stories that inspire, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Because your voice matters. Together, we can lift stories that change the world. Let's keep this conversation alive. Thank you for watching. Your support means everything.